At the time of recording this, it's been around 3 months since the, let's just say, controversial launch of the FNAF movie back in October. So I feel like it's been enough time for me to throw my hat into the toxic cesspool that is this movie to show my review. Okay, so I'm not the biggest FNAF fan. I had all the games on PC, but then that broke, so can't play them anymore, so sad. So now I'm left with Help Wanted, and the books, and the worst books, and the even worse books, and the books that aren't real, and the entire game series. I will obviously be a bit biased to the movie because I have played the games and shit, but that you'll see later, that's not true at all. Now, with that done, let's talk about the pros and cons. I won't go into an in-depth review because everyone's already done that, but as a true gamer would, I decided to start this with the cons.
I always come.
The dialogue in the FNAF movie is pretty hit or miss. While some of the lines are pretty decent, others are just shit. So let's talk about that. So the most obvious case of weird script writing is when Shaggy says, "Hi." Oh god, that sounded more like Mickey Mouse. When Shaggy says, "I always come back." Like, shut up, my guy, no one cares. A few people justified this by saying, it's his catchphrase. He has to say it in the movie, which doesn't change the fact that it makes no sense in this context. Now, despite being Willy's catchphrase, it only first appeared in FNAF 6, with it being said by Scrap Rap, and then it was in Ultimate Custom Night, and the Help Wanted mobile port. So obviously those 3 games enough to make it a catchphrase. Now this line was a reference to the FNAF 3 trailer, which has a line which is similar, which said, "He will come back, he always does." So I would say, instead of having Shaggy say, "I always come back," which just doesn't work, have him say, "I will come back, I always do," which gets the same point across, is the same reference, but sounds a lot better. So now that I have that done and dusted, I want to mention a line that's such a load of hot cock it's beyond my comprehension. When Vanny with the big fanny is trying to tell Mike that her father was the murderer and is also William, she says the classic line, "I try to tell you in my own special way." What the fuck is that line? At least "I always come back" is a reference to a line in a bunch of memes and shit. This one's just stupid. So, what's the solution? Don't have the line? It can just not be there and the movie will stay the same. This line goes hand in hand with the other big problem with the FNAF movie that I'll mention in this next section. Drum roll, please. Characters.
Toy Chica is William Afton.
Okay, so I should clarify that this section isn't about how the actors play the characters, because that will be in a later part of the video. Well, hey, watch time. So this section about how some of the characters are just fucking stupid. The main one is obviously Vanessa. I don't think anyone likes this, and I thought it's the weakest part of the movie. I don't think this is the actress's fault either. They were fine. I don't know anything about them, but I'm assuming they're decent. It's more the character, which is dumb inherently. Having them be the daughter of Willy was fine, but man, it was not executed well. The main problem is that the character isn't fleshed out. The role in the movie is just to be a walking dictionary about all the stuff in the FNAF universe, which isn't bad, but because Van the Man wasn't fleshed out, they don't feel like a character. Also, why were they called Vanessa? In my opinion, they could have just given them a different name, because that just makes a random reference from the bunny to security breach, which they're nothing like, so that shouldn't just be part of it. Finally, why is the cupcake haunted? The whole idea was the kids haunt the suit. So why is the cupcake haunted? What is it, Susie's dog that haunts the bitch? Because that's stupid. Couldn't they have just had the cupcake not be haunted? I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to replace the kills they get with a different animatronic. Speaking of animatronics haunting suits, that sure would be pretty gory. Okay, so I'm fine with them not using much blood throughout it, but at the end when Shaggy gets Springlock, I feel like there should be blood there. Look at it. Wow.
I'm your
employer, Nate? I go by many names. Phone Guy, Mad Pat, Scott Cawthon.
Is one of them you for dirtbag with a chainsaw?
Why, yes! Actually, that was my favorite.
Okay, so despite a lot of the script being pretty hit or miss, the editing is actually pretty decent. And there are some obvious ones like Mike, Shaggy, most of the children, so on and so forth. Doug is an obvious highlight because Uncle Hank plays his character surprisingly well. And it's only surprising because the character was called Goddamn Uncle Hank. The actors inside the animatronics suits played them really well, to the point that I forgot there were actors in them. But almost everyone in this movie is at least decent. So yeah, acting good.
Yeah, that's ready at the door.
So I don't know why, but the music in the minigame opening thing goes much harder than it has any right to. That's all I have to say. Okay, so probably would have gone on a lot more in the con section, but I feel like most of the problems of this movie is just because they cut out a lot of shit. For example, the babysitter character, I forgot their name and I'm not looking it up, fuck you, had a lot more just everything in the original movie, which is why they have a fairly big backstory in this, but they just die instantly. But most of that has been cut out for a time. I'm assuming it's the same thing for Vanessa and Golden Freddy and so on and so forth. And to be honest, I feel like most of my issues with the movie will be fixed if someone makes like a director's cut. Okay, so many people's problem with this movie is that it was made solely for FNAF fans. And this is something I'm not against. FNAF is a big old series, and the FNAF game theory playlist is big for a reason. These games have one of the most abstract and confusing stories ever. But the reason why this video explaining it is almost 9 hours. This shit's complex. And so trying to condense it into the length of the film was never going to happen. Okay, so just before the end of this video, because everyone's already gone in depth, I don't need to make a 13-hour review. I just want to say, it cost £16 to fucking rent this movie. That's too much, objectively, for a movie this hit or miss. If it was like cheaper, a lot cheaper, I would have gone a lot easier on the movie, but it's not. So, I'm not. There were some other complaints I have, like how in the opening, the VHS thing just cuts out into Freddy just looking at the camera when it should have had the fixed Rocky stuff and everything. How rushed a lot of the ending feels, and how it should have used the Coda song instead of the Living Tombstone version at the end. But yeah, I didn't, so fuck you. Overall, the film is just okay. It's not the near masterpiece that some people are saying, but it's still a decent watch if you're a fan of the Source game. I think I enjoy it more in retrospect than I did at the time. So I would give it around a 6.5 out of 10 if you're a FNAF fan. If you're not, 3 out of 10.
FNAF number 8 is that Toy Freddy, well, you know, he's kinda, fat.